let's look at what can we conclude and why. Why was the angle freezing? It was less than 32 degrees. On our agenda, we're going to talk about what's true about a picture, and then what can we conclude from that. Why do we know that this is true? That's going to be an important piece, is the why, and we're going to look at 7 problems. Let's get ready, grab your notes and pencil, pause, do each problem, and take notes on the last slide. Here's number 1. What is true? We are given some information as well as a picture, and we're told that M is the midpoint of segment AB. M is the midpoint. Midpoint is a vocabulary word, and it specifies that it's the point exactly in the middle. So if it's exactly in the middle, then I know that those must be congruent. So I can therefore say that AM, segment AM, is congruent to segment MB. Why can I say that? Definition of midpoint. Our reasons for our why are going to be definitions, postulates, and theorems. And that's why we're learning those along the way, so that we can support our work. Here we're told point B is between points A and C. So it is just in between. So we're not talking about midpoint. I do have some numbers labeled there. So if point B is between points A and C, that kind of sounds like segment addition postulate. So I can say this little piece plus this medium piece equals the whole thing. So I'm going to write AB without the segment over it because I'm doing segment addition, so I'm adding the pieces, so I'm dealing with the distance or the length. So the length of AB plus the length of BC is going to equal the whole length AC. From there, I could plug in that 2x minus 4 plus 3x plus 2 has to equal AC. I don't know what it is, so I can't actually go ahead and solve for x, but I do need to answer the question why. And this is going to be segment addition postulate. With the word between on a segment, that's all you can conclude is the segment addition postulate. Number 3, here we're given that line L, and that's supposed to be an L right there, is the segment bisector of segment AB. So the segment bisector is the thing that's cutting it in half. It's exactly in the middle. When it says the word bisector, it's cutting it exactly in the middle. And this is a segment bisector to be different from an angle bisector. So therefore, I do know that this must be the midpoint. That's one thing I can conclude. And if that's the midpoint, then I know that those are congruent. So I can say segment AO is congruent to segment BO, and the reason is definition of segment bisector. Let's try number 4. Ray AB is the angle bisector of angle CAD. Here's our vocab word, angle bisector. Bisector means cuts it exactly in half. So I'm going to label my picture, and I can put these little congruent marks on there because I know that if that's the angle bisector, it's cutting it exactly in half. I'm going to use my letters to say what's true. Angle CAB, make sure you're labeling it correctly, CAB, the A has to be in the middle, is congruent to angle BAD. That's our congruent statements. It's the angles that are congruent. I could also say the measure of angle CAB equals the measure of BAD. I could plug in what I have, and I could say 33 equals 4x plus 1. From there, we could solve for x, but that's not what we're asked for. But then why? Why can I say this? The reason is definition of angle bisector. Number 5, we're given that ABC is a right angle. So the right angle box is already drawn in. If it wasn't, I should go ahead and do that. And when you study the picture, you're trying to figure out what can you tell is true. Well, if that's 90 degrees and I have two angles that are inside that, then 1 plus 2 must equal 90 degrees. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 90 degrees. And you do need the measure, that little m, because this is actually a measure. And the reason that we can say that, the Y, is definition of complementary. By the way, another thing that you could say here is you could say the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals the measure of angle ABC, and that would be angle addition postulate. But if you can get more specific and go to the complementary, that would be good. Number 6, we're told that angle KHI is a straight angle. What do I know is true? Well, I see ray HJ, and it's just kind of going out there. So I can say the measure of angle IHJ, this one here, plus the other little one, the acute one, plus the measure of KHJ is going to equal 180 degrees. And the reason I know that is because I know a straight angle equals 180 degrees, but this would be the linear pair postulate. We can call that LPP. And then the linear pair postulate says if you have two angles on a line, then they are going to be supplementary. I would also accept, let's erase that, definition of supplementary. Supplementary says two angles that add to 180. It's the linear pair piece that has them on the line. So I would be okay with linear pair postulate, or supplementary linear pair is more detailed. What is true here in number 7? We're given the picture. All the words we're given is that there are two intersecting lines, which we can see. And we're asked what is true and why, and what is another thing that's true. Well, I've talked about these intersecting lines creating an X and some angles. So I can see angle 1 and angle 3 are going to be congruent because they're vertical angles. So I can say angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. I could say the measure of angle 1 equals, let's get rid of that little piece there, equals the measure of angle 3. And the reason is VAT, vertical angle theorem. I could also say that 2 is congruent to 4. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 4, and the reason would also be VAT. We're going to see vertical angles a lot. They are going to be your friends because you're going to set them equal to each other. And let's recap. If you have a midpoint, that means you are creating two congruent segments. If you have a segment bisector, you're also creating two congruent segments. An angle bisector will cut the angle in half, so you'll have two congruent angles. If you have a right angle with angles, that would be complementary angles. Two angles on a line would be supplementary or LPP. And intersecting lines create congruent vertical angles. Good job.